Welcome you to Profitable Pursuits. I am so excited that you are here and I cannot wait to share your story, your journey, and most importantly, your tips and tricks so our audience can capitalize those and hopefully implement them into their own businesses. So without further ado, can you give us like a rundown of like how you got here, a little bit more about your business? Give us like the 411.
For sure. So thank you so much for having me. I'm super happy to be here. Um, I guess my story is an interesting one. And as with all the best stories, was never really planned in the first instance. So I have spent nearly 25 years in the financial services sector. And that started because when I was at university, I went to the cash point and tried to get some money out to buy some beer. And they said, you haven't got any. So in typical 18-year-old fashion, who hadn't planned anything, I went to get a job. And I did the same job for the next 3 years at university. And I worked in a mortgage call center. So I was just booking appointments for mortgage advisors. And from then on, I never left the finance sector. So for a few years when I left university, I was an advisor. I was quite happy doing that. And then I was working for a company when I was about 28 that got into difficulty. And of course, I was 28. I didn't have any savings. I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I thought, I think I can probably do this. I think I can run a business in this space. So we started by myself and my business partner set up a business, and we were going to work in an office at the bottom of my mum's garden. And that's a bit fancy. It was basically a shed, but I like to say it was an office.
Like it
And
too.
yeah, and that was the plan. We were going to just be two mortgage advisors working as a partnership. Within 2 years, I had a business with 50 advisors working for me, turning over multi 8 figures. And within the next 5 years, I'd merged that business with 5 other directors, and we had a multi-million-pound turnover national advice firm, which was at the time probably the second biggest in the UK. And so I'd gone, yeah, I'd gone from basically having no money for beer to being an owner of this massive business. By the time we sold it, we were managing £2 billion worth of assets. So it was really, really big. And I made a lot of mistakes and I didn't know what I was doing half the time, but I did it anyway. And I think, as with all things, if you knew how hard it was going to be, you probably wouldn't have done it. But we sold that business in 2019 into a PLC. I then worked for the PLC for 3 years in their senior leadership team. And now what I do is coach women to build super powerful, impactful businesses where they don't burn themselves out while they're doing it, because that's one of the things that happened to me while I went on this journey that sounds super shiny on the outside, but actually it's hard. And if you don't look after yourself, it's hard. So one of the things that I learned too late, but now I practice very well, is that looking after yourself with kindness is one of the most important things you can do in business. So yeah, that's how I got here.
That is, I, first of all, am obsessed with powerhouse women. Like, I just love powerhouses. But what I love about your story is you recognize where, like, hey, this part of it, this burnout is not sustainable or how I want to continue. So let's
No.
like course correct rather than keep going down the burnout route because it was successful.
Yeah, and I recognized that partly because the financial services industry was quite male dominated when I joined in the late 90s, partly just because it's really fast paced, and partly because I didn't know myself as well as I know myself now. You can get into a place when you're an entrepreneur where you think that the pushing and pushing and pushing and working the long hours every day is part of being a successful entrepreneur, and it is not. The most successful entrepreneurs have a very good balance of self-care, exercise, nutrition, mindset, all that stuff, and that is a part of the business. And whilst I misunderstood that, I felt crappy all the time. But now the way I approach business and the way I teach my clients to approach business is actually, a business isn't you, but it is a part of you. And you need to care for it as if it was a physical part of you, because otherwise it can get you to a stage where you're feeling rubbish too often, you're working too often, you're not seeing your family. And actually, one of the major things that I teach is really understanding your why in business, really understanding your purpose and your people, like who are your ideal clients and customers. And if you can get really specific on that, it means that all those other things that are on our to-do lists that we think are important, but actually they're not getting us anywhere, they're just making us tired, we can get rid of them. And you can have a super aligned, strategically powerful business without doing an 18-hour day, because you've got rid of all the crappy bits around the edge.
Why do you think people get sucked into these like 18-hour work days? Guilty myself, been there for sure. Like why do people like get stuck in this trap of like the burnout? And that's probably, in my opinion, why so many businesses don't work out.
Yeah, I think there's lots of things, but there's two things that instantly come to mind. One is other people. You think everybody else is doing it, so you do it. You don't want to be judged. You don't want to be seen as the weaker one. You don't want to admit that you need a few days off. The other thing is, I'm a clinical hypnotherapist now as well, so I'm always aware of what's going on in our mind. And when we panic, so if, as entrepreneurs often are, panicked, they're panicked about money, or they've just lost a contract, or they thought they were going to get it and they didn't get it, and all this work they've done has been for nothing, or whatever it is, that will initiate our stress response. And our stress response will flood us with all those yucky stress hormones like cortisol and all their other nasty ones. And it will put us into a state of alert. And when we're in a state of alert, our cognitive function diminishes. We don't make such good decisions. And also, it's a bit like, I don't know if you have it there, but we have a game called Whack-A-Mole, which is for kids. And like basically, you just keep hitting them as they come up. And the guy who taught me hypnotherapy made a really good analogy, which is, as a human being, you sit in a pool of water. And the same as an entrepreneur, you're sitting in a pool of water and someone throws a rock in, and the rock could be that you've lost the contract, or you haven't got as much money through this month and you've got a cash flow problem. But instead of letting the water settle, you whack it. And then, of course, you get more ripples somewhere else. And so you whack that as well. And all of a sudden, you're just splashing in your own pond and you're creating chaos. And if you'd have just waited, the water would have settled again. And from an entrepreneur's perspective, the default is whack the water or whack the mole. Yeah. But actually, sometimes the power is in the pause, but it goes against everything kind of biologically that we want to do. So yeah, I think those two are probably front runners as to why we do that.
Well, I've never heard that analogy before. So interesting. Yeah. What I especially love about your story is that you come from like the financial industry as a profit strategist, accountant, own an agency. Obviously, like I love that. And you don't often see people in the financial space then get into like a mindset, lack of better words, feel good consulting space. How did you make that pivot?
So when I was experiencing symptoms of anxiety, overwhelm, panic, all the yucky stuff that I brought upon myself because I was whacking my water, so to speak. I tried a number of different things, which I still do. So I did breath work, I went out into nature, I did journaling. They were lovely, but I needed to get under the bonnet of why I was thinking and behaving, how I was behaving. And what we don't recognize is that some of this stuff is programming. So it's from when we were young of not feeling good enough or feeling ashamed of failure, or there'll be other stuff in the mix as to why we're feeling like that. And hypnotherapy for me really got to the root cause of why I was feeling like I was feeling super quick. And so I trained because I wanted to help other people experience the relief, the improvement, the reclamation of kind of life that I felt. And then when I'd done the training, I thought, well, you know, strategy on its own is not enough, because strategy hurts sometimes, because you keep pushing and you keep pushing and you keep pushing. And on paper, what looks like a really good plan is actually destined to fail often, because we don't take into consideration the human beings who have to deploy it. And if those human beings have limiting beliefs or behaviors, there's going to be a massive roadblock in the middle of your beautiful path to the goal of the business. And so to combine the two things, to me, just made sense. It's like, well, yes, we're business owners, yes, we're entrepreneurs, but we are human beings, and human beings need to be super kind to themselves and to others, and then we flourish. So business doesn't have to be hard or hurt, and if it does, it probably isn't right.
Can you describe like a specific strategy or decision, and perhaps it's along this way, that you personally implemented that had like such a significant impact on the profitability of your business?
So for me, the most important thing that I implemented, or I've ever taught anyone to implement, excuse me, is getting really clear on your purpose. So there will be a heartbeat to every business, is the way that I describe it. And the heartbeat is its reason for being, and also its story. And people often forget that their story is linked to their business, and they often try and rewrite that story. And actually, if you just look at the origins of why you do what you do, and you get back to basics, and you forget about money, and you forget about pressure, and you forget about visibility or other people's perspective, and you just get back to basics, you can create a strength within a business that not only will make it unbelievably resilient, it will make it super profitable. Because if every business decision that you then make, you think about that heartbeat, if it doesn't feel aligned, don't do it. You know, we spend a lot of time doing stuff that we either think other people think will make us successful, or we just feel like we need to be busy, so therefore we fill our diaries with stuff. And that's rubbish, because if you create space, that's where creativity comes in, and that's where profit comes from. So if we spend all our days doing, we often don't become more profitable, because we don't think about the new, innovative, creative stuff that actually will increase revenue, increase customer base, increase retention, all of those things. So you have to get above the business to look at those things. So that would probably be my biggest tip. Don't spend too much time in your to-do list, head down looking at it. Think about why you do what you do, and then get out of the office and go and think about ways that you can not just increase revenue, but decrease stress in the business and within yourself, because you will become more profitable.
I freaking love that. The fact of like just stepping outside of that, the to-do list that we all have, and looking like almost from an outside perspective in to see
Yeah.
what really matters. Um, our team often talks about this: when you look at, you know, your financial numbers, step back and look at it objectively, which is so hard to do when you're in it.
So hard.
You're like, I need this, I need that. But if you were like objective,
It's the whack-a-mole, it's the panic thing. It's no quick whack everything, because it's not as I want it to be. If you stop, the dust will settle, and then you can see your path. Whereas if you keep hitting things because they're not working in the same fashion, or it's a bit like, think about growing a garden. You've planted all these little seedlings, but you keep hitting them to see if they're growing. They're going to die. So you need to kind of, if anyone's ever worked as a consultant, think like a consultant for your business, but get out of your own way, and definitely get out of your office, because you can't do it in your workspace, because psychologically you're too linked to all the problems that you have.
for sure. The idea of creating space and like actual space and not like fake space. Like meaning stepping outside. So many people are like, oh, I give myself space, but like, no, like create real space so you can have that creative mind. And
Yeah,
regardless what industry you're in, as a business owner, you need that creative energy to move
you do.
forward.
You do. And I think the other thing that I've always had, and I think the most successful people always do, is a coach or a mentor. And the reason for that is because we can kid ourselves sometimes that we've given ourselves space, or we can kid ourselves that we've come up with the best solution. We haven't. We've come up with the quickest solution because we're in panic mode. And actually having a coach or a mentor that goes, have you really though? Are you sure? Or is that a lie? And they call you out on it. That's super powerful, because it can be really difficult if you're in fear to be able to come out from it. You need someone to give you a hand sometimes.
I love that. One of my favorite questions I love to ask guests who come on, if you had to get to where you are in your business today or where you're going tomorrow in half the time, what would you do?
I would cross out a lot of the things I've had on my to-do list over the years.
Oh,
Uh,
I love that.
Definitely, because we make ourselves busy fools often, and we do it because it fulfills a sense of enoughness, so that we can say to other people, oh, so busy. And actually get brutal with your to-do list. Look at it every Monday or every Friday and get rid of 30% of it. Get rid of it, because I guarantee you don't need it, or you can give someone else to do. Or actually, it's been on there for 3 months and you still haven't done it. And every week you write a new list, you write it on there because you have some vague hope that one day you'll do it. You won't get rid of it because it's taking up headspace. Just get rid of it.
Have you read the 4 Hour Work Week?
No, I don't think I have.
I'm in the midst of it right now, but a lot of this idea of like someone else can do it, get it off your list is a very similar like idea set. And quick personal, like I just hired someone to help like personal VA stuff, personal, not business. Order the Father's Day presents, order this, blah
Lovely.
blah blah.
Yeah.
In the amount of relief I have that someone else is doing it because it's not in that mind space, right? It's taken care of.
Yeah.
Someone else.
And
I don't need
actually,
to micromanage.
it's crazy the amount of energy we waste thinking about things we haven't done. So it's not just the energy that we expend doing the things that aren't necessary, it's the kind of inner critic in our mind that goes, oh, another week and you haven't finished your to-do list, and then you worry about it all weekend and you don't rest like you should do, and therefore you don't come back refreshed like you should do. And it's just get rid of it, get it off, get it off the list.
Man, it's so like relieving. I love that.
Yeah.
We here at Empowered to Profit, we're obsessed with helping our clients live out their dream and not like society's dream of what you should do. Um, so what is like next for you? Like, what is your next like big dream, big goal, big like what's like the next big wish list that's almost scary to talk about?
Yeah. So for me, I would like to get, I was going to say as many women as possible, but I don't think that's actually true because I'm a numbers girl and I've been in financial services too long. So I would like to get 1,000 women through my program in the next 18 months. And the reason I would like to do that is because I know that those 1,000 women will come out the other end feeling like it took me 10 years to learn. And if I can make their life easier and more enjoyable and bring the joy back, but also bring the abundance, then that's my next big tick. Because I've done it for myself. I've learned the hard way many, many times. And what I'm trying to do is to ease the path of other business owners, because that's what we should all be doing. You know, everyone who gets ahead should be helping the person behind, because it's not a competition. There's plenty of space for everybody. And actually, especially as a woman, your business and your business life can massively affect your life and your relationship and your time with your children and your health long term and all those other things. And it's not just about creating businesses that are super successful and bring you lots of wealth. It is about that, but it's also about making sure that as a human being, you live life and you enjoy life and you remember that you're actually here to have a human experience, not just to spend 18 hours a day at a desk.
I'm just like obsessed with what you have to say because you take like my financial part and you bring in like the emotional side, which I'm not so good at. But like as we say here at Empowered to Profit, if you're not seeing a result for all your work, like what's the point? Right? So
Exactly.
there's no point to working 18 hours if you personally aren't
No, because
flourishing.
what do you do with that money? And if I feel that my story is the strength in my messaging because I've done the money bit. I've built the business. We were incredibly successful, but that is not enough. And that is not the only way. There is a wealth of other ways that are much kinder to get to that profitable place. And in my belief, probably a more profitable place, because you can have the super strong, powerful business principles and the strategy and the tactics and the 6 month, 12 month, three year, 5 year plan, but you need something else. You need something else that takes into account that there's a human being who's going to do all these things.
Yeah. If it's not working for you, like what's the point?
Yeah.
What's the
And it
point?
will work. It absolutely will work if it's your reason for being, if the business is on point in terms of alignment. You can't make mistakes if you do everything using your human instincts. What you can do is burn a lot of energy trying to please everybody else and make yourself look all shiny. And that's not profitable.
Oh, oh my gosh, such a good freaking message. I love it. Where can people follow you, find out more about you? Where can we direct people to so they can get more of this, which is beyond important?
So the easiest place they can go is to my website. The website is my clinical hypnotherapy site. So it's www.annabartholomew.com. You can send me a message on there, and that's a nice way to start up a conversation with me. I've also got a Facebook group where I do free training every Wednesday, so 15-20 minutes. And if you message me on the website, I can give you the link for that. And
Awesome. We'll
that's
link
really
everything as well.
easy. Yeah, so yeah, I've got a Facebook group, and the other thing that I'm doing at the moment is running a monthly free 3-day masterclass. So it's an opportunity for you to come and work with me for free for a few hours a week, sorry, a few hours a day for 3 days, and get a little taster of how I coach and how I teach. So if anyone wants to try that, again, the link will be in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely. I will share everything down below and make sure everyone has access. I want to thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your inspiration. It is not every day that you meet someone in the financial industry who then can marry the tactics and the strategy with the mindset necessary to be like a whole human. So I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom with our audience.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.